The Intention Experiment by Lynne McTaggart. Introduction. The tidy view of the universe as a collection of isolated, well-behaved objects got dashed in the early part of the 20th century once the pioneers of quantum physics began peering closer into the heart of matter. The tiniest bits of the universe, those very things that make up the big objective world, did not in any way behave themselves according to any rules that these scientists had ever known. This outlaw behavior was encapsulated in a collection of ideas that became known as the Copenhagen interpretation, after the place where the forceful Danish physicist Niels Bohr and his brilliant protege, the German physicist Werner Heisenberg, formulated the likely meaning of their extraordinary mathematical discoveries. Bohr and Heisenberg realized that atoms are not little solar systems of billiard balls, but something far more messy, tiny clouds of probability. Every subatomic particle is a solid and stable thing, but exists simply as a potential of any one of its future selves, or what is known by physicists as superposition, or sum of all probabilities, like a person staring at himself in a wall of mirrors. Their conclusion suggests that at its most elemental, physical matter isn't solid and stable. Indeed, it isn't anything yet. Subatomic reality resembles not the solid and reliable state of being described to us by classical science, but an ephemeral prospect of seemingly infinite options. So capricious seemed the smallest bits of nature that the first quantum physicists had to make do with a crude symbolic approximation of the truth, a mathematical range of all possibility. At the quantum level, reality resembled unset jello. The only thing dissolving this little cloud of probability into something solid and measurable was the involvement of an observer. The moment we looked at an electron or took a measurement, it appeared that we helped to determine its final state. This suggested that the most essential ingredient in creating our universe is the consciousness that observes it. It implies that reality is not fixed but fluid or mutable, and hence possibly open to influences. If matter was mutable and consciousness made matter a set something, it seemed likely that consciousness might also be able to nudge things in a particular direction. A textbook definition of intention characterizes it as a purposeful plan to perform an action which will lead to a desired outcome. Marilyn Schlitz, Vice President for Research and Education at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and one of the scientists engaged in the earliest investigation of remote influence, defined intention as the projection of awareness with purpose and efficacy toward some object or outcome. To influence physical matter, they believed thought had to be highly motivated and targeted. The largest and most persuasive body of research has been amassed by William Browd, a psychologist and the research director of the Mind Science Foundation in San Antonio, Texas, and later the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. Browd and his colleagues demonstrated that human thoughts can affect the direction in which fish swim, the movement of other animals such as gerbils, and the breakdown of cells in the laboratory. Most intriguing in much of the research on psychokinesis, mental influence of any variety had produced measurable effects, no matter how far the distance between the sender and the object, or at what point in time he generated his intention. According to experimental evidence, the power of thought transcended time and space. Intention appears to be something akin to a tuning fork, causing the tuning forks of other things in the universe to resonate at the same frequency. Intention has already been employed in many quarters to cure illness, alter physical processes, and influence events. It is not a special gift, but a learned skill readily taught. Indeed, we already use intention in many aspects of our daily lives. Part 1, the science of intention. A human being is part of the whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. Albert Einstein. Chapter 1, Mutable Matter. According to the second law of thermodynamics, all physical processes in the universe can flow only from a state of greater to lesser energy. We throw a stone into a river and the ripple it makes eventually stops. A cup of hot coffee left standing can only grow cold. Things eventually fall apart. Everything travels in a single direction from order to disorder, but this might not always be inevitable, Rosenbaum believed. Recent discoveries about disordered systems suggested that certain materials under certain circumstances might counteract the laws of entropy and come together rather than fall apart. Was it possible that matter could go in the opposite direction from disorder to greater order? One of the strangest aspects of quantum physics is a feature called non-locality, also poetically referred to as quantum entanglement. The Danish physicist Niels Bohr discovered that once subatomic particles such as electrons or photons are in contact, they remain cognizant of and influenced by each other instantaneously over a distance forever, despite the absence of the usual things that physicists understand are responsible for influence, such as an energy of force, such as an exchange of force or energy. Bell's inequality has enormous implications for our understanding of the universe. By accepting non-locality as a natural facet of nature, we are acknowledging that two of the bedrocks on which our worldview rests are wrong, that influence occurs only over time and distance, and that particles like Daphne and Ted, and indeed the things that are made up of particles, exist only independently of each other. And I realized they had discovered a mechanism for intention. They had demonstrated that atoms, the essential constituents of matter, could be affected by non-local influence. Large things like crystals were playing not by the grand rules of the game, but by the anarchic rules of the quantum world, maintaining invisible connections without obvious cause. Thomas Durt of Vrije University in Brussels demonstrated through elegant mathematical formulations that almost all quantum interactions produce entanglement, no matter what the internal or surrounding conditions. Ziela's work demonstrated something even more astonishing. Large matter was neither something solid and stable nor something that necessarily behaved according to Newtonian rules. Molecules needed some other influence to settle them into a completed state of being. These two experiments also hold the key to a science of intention, how thoughts are able to affect finished solid matter. They suggest that the observer effect occurs not simply in the world of the quantum particle, but also in the world of the everyday. Co-creation and influence may be a basic inherent property of life. Chapter 2, the human antenna. One day, on a whim, Gary unscrewed the antenna and placed his finger on the screw where the cable had been. What had been a mass of squiggles and static noise on the screen suddenly coalesced into a perfect image. Even at that young age, Gary had understood that he had witnessed something extraordinary about human beings. His body was acting like a television antenna, a receiver of this invisible information. Simple movement generated electrical charge, but more important, created a relationship. Every movement we make appears to be felt by the people around us. Could the energy of thought have the same effect as the energy of movement outside the thinker's own body? Schwartz compared effects from the Reiki group with those of the master healers and discovered an enormous difference. The master healers averaged close to a third more magnetic field changes per minute than the Reiki healers. The study results seem clear. Schwartz and Connor had their proof that directed intention manifests itself as both electrostatic and magnetic energy, but they also discovered that the intention was like playing the piano. You need to learn how to do it, and some people do it better than others. In the mid-1970s, a German physicist named Fritz Albert Popp had stumbled upon the fact that all living things, from the most basic of single-celled plants to the most sophisticated organisms like human beings, emitted a constant tiny current of photons, tiny particles of light. Schwartz now had his answer about the nature of conscious thought. Healing intention creates waves of light, and indeed, those are among the most organized light waves found in nature. Chapter 3, the two-way street. It was obvious to him that he needed to pose an immediate and genuine threat. He would get a match and burn the electroded leaf. At the very moment he had that thought, the recording pen swung to the top of the polygraph chart and nearly jumped off. He had not burned the plant, he had only thought about doing it. Baxter and Henson tried their test numerous times. The results were unambiguous. The polygraphs of the electroded plant spiked a significant number of times just at the point when the brine shrimp hit the boiling water. Years after he had made this discovery and after he became a great fan of Star Wars, he would think of this moment as one in which his plants picked up a major disturbance in the force and he had discovered a means of measuring it. Baxter's real contribution was his discovery of the telepathic communication carrying on between every living thing and its environment. Somehow, a constant stream of messages was being sent out, received, and replied to. Baxter was never recognized for his contributions. He had stumbled across the first evidence that living things engage in a constant two-way flow of information with their environment, enabling them to register even the nuances of human thought. Every last thought appeared to augment or diminish something else's light. Chapter 4, Hearts That Beat as One. Whenever Tart jolted himself, the receiver registered an unconscious empathetic response in decreased blood volume and increased heart rate, as though he was also getting the shocks. The Love study indicates a number of profound suggestions about the nature of intention. Sending a directed thought seems to generate palpable energy. Whenever one of Radin's senders sent a healing intention, many subtle aspects of the receiver's body became activated as though he or she had received a minuscule electric shock. There had even been an element of anticipation in the receiver. Some of the physiological reactions recorded suggested that the receiver had felt the partner's healing intention before he had even sent it. People appear to receive healing deep in their bodies by being retuned to the more coherent energy of the healer's intention. Part 2, Powering Up. Chapter 5, Entering Hyperspace. The monks had used their bodies to boil freezing water simply through the power of the thoughts. In every instance, I discovered the most important first step involved achieving a state of concentrated focus or peak attention. Even during their resting state, the Buddhists somehow showed evidence of a high rate of gamma band activity compared with that of the neophyte meditators. Davidson demonstrated that meditation alters brainwave patterns even among new practitioners. Neophytes who practice mindfulness meditations for only 8 weeks showed increased activation of the happy thoughts part of the brain and enhanced immune function. Meditation also appears to permanently enhance the brain's reception. During certain types of meditation, the brain is engaged in a state of rapt attention. Lazar's research offered some of the first evidence that meditation causes permanent alterations to the brain structure. Sean Harabantz and Swan had been graced with a greater capacity than normal to see beyond the limits of time, distance, and the 5 major senses. The most important aspect of the healer's process was undoubtedly their surrender, their willingness to give up their sense of cognitive control of the process and allow themselves to become pure energy. Achieving a state of reduced self-awareness, a difficult state for an ordinary person to achieve, might allow for greater effects of intention on the machines. It became clear to me that the intense focus of certain types of meditation can be a portal to hyperspace and peaks awareness, transporting the meditator to a different layer of reality. It can also be an energizing practice more than a calming one that can help us rewire our brains to improve our reception and transmission of intention. Chapter 6, In the Mood. Patients in all the noetic treatment groups enjoyed 30 to 50% improvement in health during the hospital stay, with fewer complications and a lower incidence of narrowing of the arteries compared with the control group. They also had a 25 to 30% reduction in adverse outcomes, death, heart attack, heart failure, worsening of the state of their arteries, or a need for repeat angioplasty. But of all the alternative therapies employed, prayer had the most profound effect. With intention, the agent of change is human. With prayer, it is God. Chapter 7, The Right Time. Contact with geomagnetic fields may play a primary role in maintaining the equilibrium of the nervous system. Indeed, the Earth's tiny geomagnetic fluctuations have the most profound effect on the major engines of the body, the heart and brain. Persinger discovered that the portion of the brain most susceptible to electromagnetic and geomagnetic effects are the temporal lobes. Our sense of self and our sense of the other are housed in both temporal lobes, but primarily in the left hemisphere where the language centers are located. The nature of the experience largely depended on the participant's individual history. Negative early life experiences tend to increase the sensitivity of the right temporal lobe, and those with a high proportion of such experiences tend to have a negative experiencing while wearing the helmet. A happier person with a more sensitive left temporal lobe is more likely to experience a sense of the divine. When the earth is calm and geomagnetic flux at an ebb, telepathic and extrasensory perceptions increase. Persinger's research offers a vast amount of evidence that magnetic frequency affects our ability to tune in and transmit. It also affects those portions of the brain that receive the information. Part 3, The Power of Your Thoughts. Baseball is 90% mental. The other half is physical. Yogi Berra. Chapter 9, Mental Blueprints. In the latter years of his fighting career, Ali spent much of his training time learning how to take punches. The most important work was being done not in the ring, but in his armchair. He was fighting the fight in his head. Ali was a master of intention. Before a fight, Ali used every self-motivational technique out there: affirmations, visualization, mental rehearsal, self-confirmation, perhaps the most powerful epigram of personal worth ever uttered: I am the greatest. Athletes of all varieties now routinely practice what is variously termed mental rehearsal, implicit practice, or even covert rehearsal. Focused intention is now deemed essential to alter and improve performance. Swimmers, skaters, weightlifters, and football players employ intention to enhance their level of performance and consistency. It is even being used in leisure sports such as golf or rock climbing. Virtually all Canadian Olympic athletes use mental imagery. The most successful internal rehearsal involves imagining the sports event from the athlete's perspective as though he or she is actually competing. It amounts to a mental trial run. Ali imagining his right fist at the moment of impact on Frazier's left eye. The athlete envisions the future in minute detail as it is unfolding. Champion athletes forecast and rehearse every aspect of the situation and the steps they should take to overcome any possible setbacks. The most successful athletes break down their performances into tiny component parts and work on improving specific aspects. Winning depends on how specifically you can mentally rehearse. Experienced athletes engage all their senses in their mental rehearsal. They not only have a visual internal image of the future event, but also hear it, feel it, smell it, and taste it. Just the thought is enough to produce the neural instructions to carry out the physical act. When an athlete performs, the nerves that signal to the muscles along a particular pathway are stimulated, and the chemicals that have been produced remain there for a short period. Because the brain does not distinguish between doing something specific and just thinking about doing it, mental rehearsal lays down the tracks just as well as a physical practice does. To produce any benefit, mental rehearsal must replicate the real thing at normal speed. Specific imagery enhanced only the specific tasks that had been imagined. Besides improving performance, mental intention can produce actual physiological changes, not only in the athlete's body. Those who regularly visited the gym were able to increase their muscle strength by 30%, but even those who remained in their armchairs and ran through a mental rehearsal of the weight training in their minds increased muscle power by almost half as much. Pure directed thought can give you the burn almost as well as any workout. One study demonstrated that under hypnosis, women increased the dimensions of their breasts simply by visualizing themselves on the beach with the sun's rays warming their chests. The kinds of vivid visualization techniques used by athletes are also highly effective in treating illnesses. Patients have boosted treatment of an array of acute and chronic conditions from coronary artery disease and high blood pressure to low back pain and musculoskeletal diseases by using mental pictures or metaphoric representations of their bodies fighting the illness. Visualization has also improved post-surgical outcomes, helped with pain management, and minimized the self-effects of chemotherapy. Those who were successful had a greater ability to visualize vividly with powerful imagery and symbols and could hold a clear visual intention, imagining themselves overpowering the cancer and the medical treatment being effective. The successful patients also practiced their visualization regularly. It may well be that intention can be used to control the brain, brainwave by brainwave. The mental instructions were more important than the actual visual image. We could raise the quality of our daily endeavors just by carrying out a detailed mental rehearsal. At home, we might be able to send intentions to our children to perform better at school and be more loving to their friends. Human intention might be powerful enough to affect every element of our lives. Chapter 10, the voodoo effect. Thoughts take aim with great accuracy, although their effects on living things can differ drastically depending on the nature of the intention, whether it's positive or negative. Where we position ourselves when sending out a thought might also have a bearing on our success. Being near the target while sending a positive intention, being away from the target when sending a negative intention might magnify its effect. A negative thought about yourself, I'm untalented or lazy, or your children might ultimately manifest itself as physical energy and become a self-fulfilling prophecy. All these studies are small, but they carry a huge implication. Even your current state of mind carries an intention that has an effect on life around you. These studies also raise the possibility that the thoughts that spill out of us at every moment also affect innate objects within our reach. The homing thought that each of us can hold on to, Diamond realized, was our ultimate aspiration or purpose in life. He has also referred to it as candidation, each person's special gift or talent that gives one not only a sense of joy, but also a union with the absolute. Whenever we are besieged by the darkest of intentions, we might best protect ourselves when holding on to the thought of what we have been born to do. Chapter 11, praying for yesterday. There is also the possibility that at the most fundamental layer of your existence, there is no such thing as sequential time. For me, Bruckner's thought experiment held a significance far greater than a simple theoretical one. It showed that instantaneous cause and effect occurs not only through space, but also back and possibly forward through time. It offered the first mathematical proof that the actions of every moment influence and change those of our past. It may well be that every action we take, every thought we have in the present, alters our entire history. Although our understanding of the mechanism is still primitive, the experimental evidence of time reversal is fairly robust. This research portrays life as one giant smeared out here and now, much of it past, present, future, as open to our influence at any moment. Chapter 12, the intention experiment. We can no longer view ourselves as isolated from our environment and our thoughts as the private self-contained workings of an individual brain. Repeatedly, the mind has proved to be a far more powerful healer than the greatest of breakthrough drugs. Part 4, the experiments. The intention, chapter 13, the intention exercises. Although the power of intention is such that any sort of focused will may have some effect, the scientific evidence suggests that you will be a more effective intender if you become more coherent in the scientific sense of the term. To do this to greatest effect, or so to the scientific evidence suggests, you will need to choose the right time and place, quiet your mind, learn how to focus, and train yourself with the object of your intention, visualize and mentally rehearse. Believing that the experiment will work is also essential. Once you have achieved your alpha state, quietly observe as precisely as you can whatever manifests itself in your mind and body. Be present and attentive to what is rather than what your emotions tell you, what you wish were the case, or only what is most pleasurable. Developing mindfulness in your daily life. Engage in mental noting in which you label an ongoing activity. For example, I'm putting on my coat, opening the door, tying my shoes. Use mindfulness in every ordinary situation. When you are preparing dinner or even brushing your teeth, be aware of all the smells, textures, colors, and sensual feelings you're experiencing. Learn to really look at your partner and your children, your pets, your friends, and your colleagues. Observe them closely during every activity, every part of them without judgment. During some activities such as breakfast, ask your children to be mindful without speaking of every aspect of it, concentrating on this taste of your food. Look closely at the texture and the colors of it. How does the cereal crunch? How does the juice feel as it cascades down your throat? Listen to what your life sounds like, the myriad noises surrounding your everyday. Stating your intention. In your meditative state, state your clear intention. Although many people use the construction I have always been healthy, I prefer the present tense of sending your attention to the endpoint at which, as a wish that has already been achieved. For instance, if you're trying to heal back pain, you can say, my lower back and sacrum are free of all pain and now move easily and fluidly. Remember to frame your intention as a positive statement rather than, I will not have side effects. Say, I will be free of side effects. Practice visualizing. You can practice visualization first by getting into a meditative state, imagining the following while recalling or imagining as much as you can about the sights and smells and your feelings about them. One, a favorite meal, your bedroom, a really happy moment, a recent happy moment, yourself performing an activity such as running, riding a bicycle, swimming, or working out in the gym, your favorite music. To visualize your intention, first work it out carefully ahead of time. For healing, try to imagine healing energy, perhaps as a white light or as your personal deity, filling you, and observe it healing the portion of your body that is ill, say, turning a diseased organ into a healthy one. Belief. The copious evidence of the placebo effect demonstrates the extraordinary power of belief. Belief in the power of intention is also vital. Move aside. In studies of meditation, mediumship, and healing, people who are successful at intention imagine themselves and the person receiving healing as one with the universe. In your meditative state, enter into a zone where you relax your sense of I and you feel emerging with the object of your intention and the field. Frame your intention, state it clearly, and then let go of the outcome. At this point, you may sense that the intention is taken over by some greater force. Close your internal meditation with a request and then move your own ego aside. Remember, this power does not originate with you. You are its conduit. Think of it as a request you are sending to the universe. Your personal intention experiments. To have something manifest in your life. Set a goal that has never happened, but that you would like to have happen. Choose something that seldom occurs or is particularly unlikely so that if it does come to pass, it is more likely to be the result of your intention. Here are some possibilities: receiving flowers, having your wife sit down and watch a football match with you, having the boredest neighbor who never gives you the time of day start a cheery conversation, stopping your cat from scratching the sofa, having your husband or wife come home from work 1 hour earlier than usual, achieving 10% higher profits at work, growing your plants or crops 10% faster than usual. As you begin to manifest, you can try more complicated thoughts, but remember, at first, you want one single event to change, something where change can be easily quantified and can probably be attributed to your thoughts. Retro intentions. If you still have a medical problem of some sort, cast your mind back to the point where it started. Carry out an intention for it to resolve itself then. See if you are now better. If you are not getting along with someone, cast your mind back to the point where you first had a disagreement and send your attention to change there. Remember to be very specific. Ask your friends and family if you can try a retro prayer for some of the loved ones who were ill 5 years before. Concentrate on their former illness and see if this improves their current state of health. Group intention exercises. Assemble a group of friends who are interested in trying out some group intention exercise. Create an intention space where you will meet each time. Select a group target in your community. Here are a few possibilities: improving the weather, reducing violent crime, reducing pollution.